All right, hi. So my name is Desiree Brown, and I'm a speech language pathologist with Sturgeon Public Schools. And today we're going to be talking about visuals. The presentation that we're using for today was adapted from Infinite Resources by myself and Nicole Leader, an occupational therapist with the division. And today we're really doing just kind of like a basic overview of visuals and visual strategies. So we're going to be talking about what visuals are, why they're beneficial, when to use them, where they should be used and how we do that, and who uses visuals. And of course, we'll give you some tips and strategies on how to use them effectively. Sorry, I'm just going to stop for a moment. Haley, I see that my slides aren't changing. Are you able to maybe present it on your end, or do I need to present it in a different way? Try this, I guess. No, I don't want to do that. So I just saw my slides weren't syncing, so I'm just trying to figure that out. There we go. Okay, so again, these are what we'll be talking about. So what is a visual strategy? Basically, a visual is anything that you can see. I'm using a visual strategy right now as I don't see my slides presenting. Checking back. Just gonna try find this a different way. right, we're going to start that again. Sorry, I was trying to figure out a way that I could do this and still see my notes, but I will not be able to use that visual strategy for this presentation, unfortunately. But now you should be able to see them and see the sides changing. So again, what we'll be highlighting are visual strategies, why they're beneficial, when to use them, where they should be used and where they can be used, who uses them, and how to use visuals effectively. So what are visuals? They're anything you can see that helps our organization, communication, and ability to understand. So those could be gestures, it could be facial expressions, it could be pointing to something, it can be objects, it can be pictures, magazines, lots and lots of different possibilities. So we'll talk about some of them and how you can use them to support your kids. This is typically where we would ask for some examples, and I'm going to share a few of my own just to kind of get your brains thinking. And while you're watching this, maybe you can think about some of the ways that you might have used visuals over the past little while. So I'm referring to my clock. I can use that as a visual. Whenever I'm baking something, I use a timer to help me know how much time is left. During the presentation, I'm using the visuals of the slides to help cue myself on what to remember to speak about. So using kind of written words is a visual. I know I'm always checking my calendar, so that's another really common one that as adults we use all the time. Even getting groceries, checking the grocery list, or sometimes if I'm in a hurry and don't have a list, using the actual objects of helping me remember what I need. So I might forget if I don't have my list with me that I need milk, but as I walk down the aisles and I see the fridge with the milk in it, I go, oh yeah, I need milk. So that's another idea. Here's a few more. So signs and logos, gestures too, like you might ask someone like, are you okay? Are you good? So that can be a visual. You see these pictures here of different, like we use where the restroom is, or if we're looking for a certain restaurant. Also signs like sign language can be a visual. There's also written language. So again, like I mentioned, you might have notes. I know I have sticky notes for myself as a visual. You can have written words of lists or things to remember to do, or steps. Magazines and catalogs are another visual. Having clocks, day timers, calendars, those different types of schedules that help keep us on track, as well as photos, pictures, line drawings, and clip art. So there's lots and lots of different types of visuals. So just a little fun fact, did you know that visual strategies enhance both our communication and our understanding? So there's different ways and different purposes why we might use visuals. The main way we'll be talking about them today is mostly to do with helping understanding, as well as increasing a feeling of independence and helping guide your kids to becoming more independent. Images can communicate information faster than just hearing it alone. So as soon as you see the stop sign, you know what that means. Whereas if you read a word that's read something different, or if you just heard it, it can be a little slower than seeing it right away. It also increases recall in educational materials by over 60%. So that's a big percent, but it really just goes to show that when we do involve these different modalities, such as visuals, that can really help us remember what we did or what we learned. So I already mentioned a few of these. It helps in retaining and recalling information quicker. It can also reduce behavior. One of the nice things about visuals is that they can kind of take the person away from it. So instead of saying, like, in the classroom, for example, be like, oh, the schedule says it's time for gym, so let's go to gym now. It's not like the person saying it. It's like, oh, that's what our schedule says it's time to do now. So it can kind of take the person out of it and help just decrease any conflicts that there might be. It can help your student to feel more independent too. It reduces their reliance on someone verbally saying things. So as once the visuals become familiar, they can start to refer to those themselves. so they can look to the schedule of what's next, or if they have a list of things to do to get ready for the day, they can be referring that and checking it off themselves instead of having a person telling them those things. So that, yeah, it can help increase their independence and confidence as well. It can also clarify verbal statements, so it just makes things a little bit more clear, make a bit more sense, can allow for making choices, can reduce the stress on adults. Visuals can also be used to help social interactions, as well as they can be regulating. So why is it so important to help regulate a child? When regulated, children are better able to demonstrate their knowledge and be in an optimal learning state. Not a lot of learning is going to happen when kids aren't regulated. Even if you think of yourself, if you're maybe had a rough day, things aren't going so great, it can be a lot harder to do your best work and your best job when you're maybe feeling a little bit on edge. So when you're regulated, you can better make those decisions, process information, as well as maybe communicate that information more clearly. So when a child can regulate, that can help them build a healthy self-esteem and sense of self. So visuals have to be taught in context. If I were just to put this up on a wall in a room and be like, what does this mean? You might not know. But if maybe we're on a road that had some curves up ahead and I had a driver's ed teacher or something that explained it, then I might know what this sign meant. But sometimes when we first introduce visuals, we do need to do a little bit of teaching around them so that we know what they're for and when they can be used. So when we use them, it can help build more predictable and an understandable environment. So that can help students feel regulated because things are, they know what to expect. It's helpful to have visuals in the places where they'll be used. So like I said, that picture of the car, not super helpful in a room, but on a road where that's actually applicable, that would be more helpful. So having visuals where they're needed. It's also a great idea to add the printed word. Even though your child might not be able to read yet, by having the printed word there, it kind of scaffolds them and teaches them those skills, like they start to recognize those letters and those words that go with the pictures. So it's kind of a way of introducing them to some of those literacy skills and helping them to remember, as well as they get older or more advanced with their reading skills, you might find that the written word is enough. So it's great to start with both. Older people, like sometimes myself, I'll just jot down a sticky note thing and that's enough for me now. But yeah, introducing the printed word at the very beginning is a great idea. It's also helpful to try and use the same label for it each time and try to be consistent with it, just to help your child to understand what those different visuals are. If every time we're calling the same picture something different, that can be pretty confusing. So trying to be consistent with the language that you're using. It also helps to draw your child's attention to the visual. So just having it there and not ever referring to it isn't necessarily going to be helpful. So for example, you might have in your home, you might have been sent home with one of those dressing strips that has, for winter, it's like a coat, and first it's the snow pants, then the coat, and all the different things that go with that. But if it's just there and no one's ever saying like, oh, look, like, what do we need to do first? And oh, let's see what's next. Then they might not actually be looking to it and referring to it. So just helping them know where they are and referring to them. Like this example has a visual schedule. So in the school day, it's helpful to say, okay, first we have circle time, then we have free play. We're going to have gym, and then after gym is library, and then printing, and then home time. And you're kind of pointing to each and drawing their attention to each so that they really understand what's happening and the order. Going over the order too like that can also help. Like this one is set left to right. So that's another thing that can kind of help with reading and organizing, just knowing that things go from left to right or top to bottom. So how do I know if I need to use visuals? Like I said, there's a few things like I know as adults we use them all the time. So they can be really helpful, obviously, for your kids to use too. Everyone can use them, but they're especially useful if you notice that your student or your child is having difficulty following directions. They might have a hard time expressing themselves. So that can be helpful sometimes when in those dysregulated states. Visuals are sometimes a lot more simple than the verbal words, so they can be helpful as well in those times. They might you ask them to do something and they're kind of giving you like like just that kind of blank stare. So that kind of goes along with difficulty following directions, or only completing one part of what they were asked to do. Again, not if you ask them to do 2 steps, they're just completing one of those parts. Or maybe if they have difficulty communicating what they need or what they would like. So there's kind of both some support for their understanding as well as some support for their communication. And yeah, everyone can be using visuals. So at school, there's lots of times where we try and integrate visuals in the classroom, such as having the visual schedule of this is what's going to happen during our day. There's lots of different visuals for different topics that some teachers might have. So maybe they're doing a certain science unit and they have some of those pictures of those important science things, or in social, they have like a map with some key things highlighted. Most classrooms have a clock. Some classrooms use visual timers, whether it's a sand timer that you flip over or a timer on the smart board that they click and can know like when the time is up and it's time to move on to something else. When you think of assemblies, they'll often have different visuals. Maybe there's a slide, a PowerPoint slide going on. Maybe there's some certain decorations that are involved for a certain theme. There's usually some presenters at the front, so those people are visual as well. And any activity where they might need an additional assistance. So maybe in the gym or the library, there's some visuals kind of taking them through the steps of this is how we take out the books at the library, or here's where you scan your book, or things like that. Visuals can also be really powerful for transitioning. So we'll use kind of first, then visuals a lot. Like I think I showed you this gym one, so it can be helpful to show where you're going next in the day. During free play, there can be visuals. Again, both for kind of understanding, like this is how you can play this game, or also for communication. Sometimes we'll have themed cards with certain vocabulary that goes with a certain activity at that word so that the child can be using that vocabulary. Also during desk work, field trips, it can go on and on. So as well as at home, some really common times where visuals can be helpful include like getting ready activities. So maybe they're getting ready for their day at school or just getting ready for their day in general. So what do they need to do to get ready? It can be things like getting dressed to go for outside, or even just getting dressed for the day. Like what are all the things they need, and having pictures of like a shirt and pants and socks. Sometimes the bedtime routine can be a helpful one to have visuals around. So maybe you have each step, like first we brush teeth, then we go to the bathroom, then we read a book, and then say goodnight or something like that. So kind of thinking about what could work for you. But yeah, those getting ready routines can be, it can be really helpful to have those visuals with those routines. You might involve your child in some chores or some daily tasks. So maybe they help load the dishwasher, or maybe they help with the laundry. So again, you can think of some visuals that go along with those to make them more successful with those tasks. So really any setting where they might need some assistance or to help kind of decrease that stress and increase predictability. So there's school, there's home, also there's different community activities that you can think about using visuals for. So it might be all their hockey equipment. So what do they need to have to get ready for hockey, or what do they need to do? Maybe they're doing Girl Scouts and they're going to be selling cookies for the first time, but they're not really sure what to do. So maybe you can think of a social story that has pictures in it of, okay, first we're going to be at this place and this is what we'll say, and then this is what's next. So just having it really clearly laid out for them so that they know what to expect and what to do. Can also be helpful for outings. So whether you're going to a mall or a restaurant, again, having those steps and pictures laid out, or yeah, any activity where they might need some assistance, like music or library or gym. So I kind of mentioned a few of these a little bit, but I'll just kind of at the end of this, you'll be able to see all in one place the different kinds of visuals that there are. So one of them is social stories. This first one is called When I'm Angry. So as you flip through this one, like you can see on the front page, it's a person that kind of has an angry face and it says when I'm angry. So the next page would be like, sometimes I might get angry. That's okay. I might get angry when these things happen, and there'd be a picture. And then on the next page, there'd be like, when I'm angry, I can do these things. And there'd be some visuals to go with that. And it's kind of takes you step by step through kind of how to cope with that and some strategies to support it. So that's one way to use social stories. Another really powerful way is to help them prepare for something new. So maybe your family's going on a vacation over the summer. They're going somewhere they've never been before. So in that case, the social story could be like, we're going on vacation. And the first page could be like how you're getting there. So maybe we're driving in the car for 5 hours and there's a picture of your car and maybe a picture of the timer or something that shows 5 hours. And then the next page is when we get there, we are staying at a hotel or maybe at a friend's house or a relative's house, and you could have a picture of the place that you're staying at, and as well as some of the people that you might be seeing there, and then maybe how long you're staying there. So we're staying there for a certain number of days. Again, you could show the calendar, and then maybe while you're there, some of the key activities that you'll be doing. So maybe you'll be going swimming and there's a picture of the pool. Maybe you'll be going walking on a hike or something, and you can have a picture of a trail that's kind of, or the trail that you're going on. So kind of trying to pick pictures as related as possible to what you're doing and really breaking it down step by step to help them be prepared for that, and going through kind of from the very start to the very end. So those are social stories. And if you're wanting to learn more about those, you can obviously reach out to your team as well. AI has become a useful tool. So sometimes it can be, if you type in kind of all your information and make me a social story about this situation and give as many details as possible, it can kind of start something for you. And then you can go in and add the specific pictures or the specific information. But that is an option. There's also these kind of coping boards or choice boards. So kind of related, but the top has some feelings. So I might be feeling sad or frustrated. So when I'm feeling those things, here are some other options I can do. So maybe it's asking for a hug or listening to music or going to a quiet space for a little while. So having those kind of I can options or kind of choice options is helpful for your child. And of course, you're going to want to personalize this to the things that help them the most. And yeah, so it might be asking for a break, again, maybe headphones, a hug, yeah, you know your child and what feels best. Sometimes even just taking some breaths can help. So having those options on there. You can also have kind of token boards. So as you finish the tasks, you're kind of filling up the tokens. Schedules, like I mentioned. So first we're going to go for a bike ride, then we're having snack, then we'll have a bath. So those can be helpful for kind of organizing your days and routines. Topic boards. These are one that I mentioned earlier that are more helpful for having available at those different communication or different activities throughout the day to help their expressive communication. So for example, there might be a topic board or a core board around Play-Doh, and it can on it. It might have words like squish and roll and push and want, or it might have different colors on it or something like that. Whereas like the bubbles would have maybe like words like big or small, pop. So topic words are just like what they sound. They're related to a certain topic or a certain activity, and they have pictures of vocabulary on it that can be kind of modeled by an adult in those activities, as well as used by a child, so they can kind of be pointing it to communicate as well. Transitions, I mentioned the first then. So first we're going to do this activity, then this activity is going to happen. As well as it can be used for different cues. So there might be like different cards for like, this is my turn, this is your turn, for like a back and forth game. There could be like a stop, watch, and listen, kind of that script for learning activity. So those are helpful as well as task boards. So again, taking kind of like a bigger task and really breaking it down into each little step. So the bathroom, first we use the toilet, then we flush, then we use soap, we wash our hands, then we rinse them off, then we dry our hands. So kind of going through each step of them. So most of these are to do with kind of helping them with their understanding, other than with the exception of the topic boards that helps more them to communicate and say what they would like. So along with that, I'm also going to talk a little bit about AAC, and this is, again, visuals, but that are more for communicating. So AAC stands for Alternative or Augmentative Communication. It can be used to help your child express themselves clearly. So whether they're using words, but they have a lot of speech difficulties and it's just kind of hard to understand their words clearly, so then they might use AAC to kind of augment what they say, or they might use it kind of as an alternative or instead of words. So I'll often give the example when talking about AAC of, some days I can pick up the phone and call my mom and that's just fine. But other days when I'm feeling a bit more tired, I might just send a quick text and get right to the point instead. So when we think about alternative communication, it's that alternative to kind of that verbal of picking up the phone. We're using written words or texting instead, because that's what feels most accessible at that time. So sometimes, especially with the autistic community, that burnout and tiredness can be a thing, but having an alternative system can help them still be able to communicate those thoughts and ideas when they might be feeling really tired or burnt out. So there's different types of AAC that are similar to visuals. So it might be low tech or no tech, like using sign language or gestures or pointing. So that's not really involving anything. It could be a communication book. So that's something that's printed and is organized in a certain way where they can access different vocabulary. So that's more of like a system, as well as high-tech options. So those are things like on tablets or computers, there's different apps for communication. They're organized, again, in a specific way so that they can access those vocabulary words in different situations and settings. So if you are wondering about AAC, it's beneficial to, of course, talk to your team and your SLP, and they can kind of help guide you. There's lots of different options, but the purpose of AAC is that it can help your child to communicate. So that's helping their expressive language. And again, it should be just some key points about using it. It should be individualized, so the vocabulary should be related to them, should be available in all settings. So we don't just want them using these AAC devices in one setting or at school with their SLP. We want them using it at home, when they're at the library, when they're anywhere that they need to communicate, as well as it should be modeled frequently. So those are just some highlights about AAC. There's a little bit of time here for questions, but I'm just actually going to show you some examples of visuals. So in the resources area, you'll have access to these. Okay, so I'll start with this one. So this is an example of a bedtime routine. So again, it goes through the steps. First, you put on your pajamas, then brushing and flossing your teeth, having a drink of water, reading a bedtime story, kiss and hug goodnight, getting tucked in, lights out, and sleep. So you can kind of rearrange the order however you like, or take out things that you aren't applicable, or add more things that might be part of your routine. But there's an example of a bedtime routine in the files included. There's also a template for a first then schedule. So you can have that to play around with. There's also a sample home schedule. So this goes, the example goes through a full kind of day, right from kind of making it up and getting dressed, to having breakfast, to making lunch, having a snack, doing chores, all the way to bedtime. So that's an example of a full day. You might not want all of that, or you might just want some of it. So again, you can pick and choose what you want. There's also some pictures there of certain things for getting dressed. Yeah, these are things that you can kind of use to make your own schedule. So getting dressed, having breakfast, brushing your hair, going outside. So you can make your own schedule a bit more tailored. This is that dressing schedule that I mentioned. So snow pants, then coat, then hat, then boots, then mitts, then backpack, and then they're ready for school. So now you can kind of cut a few things of those out now that the weather's getting warmer, but it might be helpful to remember in the winter if they're struggling with remembering how to get dressed or get ready and get all the things on. This is here for you as a strategy or a support. There's also this visual strategies handout that goes over kind of everything that we talked about today. You can use it as a visual for yourself by having it like up on your fridge or something and just reminding you to use these visual strategies, or reminding you to choose certain times to use them. As well, there's just a quick handout on AAC. And again, it just talks about a little bit about what it is. Again, some of the key points to remember about having it being individualized, available, having an adult model it during meaningful activities. When we think about kids and how they learn language, and when they're really, really little babies, we're still talking to them and modeling language for a long, long, long time and not really expecting anything back. So in the same way, when we introduce AAC, we can think of it as like another language where we're kind of teaching them and showing them and doing lots and lots of modeling before really expecting it back or expecting them to use it on their own. So yeah, that's just some pointers to remember. But again, if you have more questions, you can feel free to reach out to the SLP on your team. If you have questions about the presentation, feel free to reach out to me. And I believe that is all for now. Thank you.